is CanadianWaffle, and today we're going to take a look at some command blocks. So, in today's video, I will be showcasing a few different kinds of timers that you can implement into your own creative command block projects. This tutorial is not for complete beginners. I'll explain my process, but I expect you to know your way around the command blocks already. So, I will be trying to cover every question I've had on the topic in this video, but if what you need for your project doesn't show up, make sure to let me know in the comments section and I'll see what I can do to help you out. I will also be including timestamps built into the video so you can see exactly where you need to go. Now, let's begin. We're going to start with a basic stopwatch timer. Before you begin placing your command blocks, you're going to need to do a few commands, which you can see here. So quickly type all of these in, feel free to pause the video, and then we'll come right back to the action. So, once you've set up your scoreboard objective and 3 scoreboard players, it's time to get into command blocks. Your command blocks for this timer are going to look like this. You're going to need 3 repeating command blocks, and on the last 2 you're going to have chain command blocks. This stopwatch timer design is expandable. For this design we'll be using seconds, ticks, seconds, and minutes, but if you want to add on hours, even days, weeks, and the rest, you can feel free to do that using the method that we discuss for the stopwatch timer. Let's begin writing out commands. The first thing you're going to want to do is scoreboard players add ticks in timer your objective 1. Pay no mind yet to the rest of these scoreboard objectives. We'll be talking about those in a later timer. So now that you've set that up, head over to your next and say execute if score ticks in timer matches 20, and then if it matches 20, make sure to use matches instead of equals. You want to run scoreboard players add seconds in timer 1. Then we're going to go up into our chain command block, make sure to set it to conditional, and say scoreboard players set ticks in timer down to 0. We want to use set to 0 instead of reset so that our ticks always have a value, and we're going to do the same with seconds and minutes. This will be helpful in later uses of your timer, and it can be helpful for implementing it into the rest of your program if you need to constantly be obtaining values from your timer. It's nice to always have a value for that player, because reset will essentially delete the player until it's called upon again. So, our last bit of command blocks here, we're going to do much of the same, so you can basically just copy and paste your command over here. Instead of saying seconds, we're going to put minutes here at the end. Instead of 20, we're going to do 60. And we want it to match with seconds instead of ticks. And so what this is saying is that if the score on seconds matches 60, you want to add 1 to minutes. Now if we just, once again, scoreboard players set, this time seconds, back down to 0, our command is complete and our stopwatch timer is as well. Now all you have to do is set everything to always active and your timer will start running. We can see that it is working as intended if we quickly set the display to timer here, you'll see that it is counting up ticks very quickly and then swiftly grabbing seconds, and you can see minutes works the same if we just quickly set seconds to say 55. After a couple seconds, you'll see that seconds is reset and minutes gains 1. So there is your basic stopwatch timer. I'm going to turn this off for now and also come over here to our handy timer resets. Let's see. Oh, well, never mind, because I forgot to put the commands into this. In that case, I'm just going to quickly set the display on sidebar back to nothing, because we are done with this for a second. Our next timer section is the Actionbar Timer, and what this is going to do is make your timers easier to visualize by using the title command instead of having a visual scoreboard like we had on the Stopwatch Timer. Because as I'm sure you could tell, it got a little bit messy and hard to understand as values were constantly jumping around. This is a very long command. There's a lot of syntax involved in the title, so I'll be putting it down in the description for you to copy paste into your command block. If you would like a more in-depth tutorial on syntax for this sort of stuff, make sure to tell me and I'd be happy to oblige. I will be right back with you once I finish putting this command in. Alright, here is our finished command. As you can see, it is indeed quite long, but essentially what it does is just tell us our seconds and minutes down in an action bar. So, as you can see, it shows up right there, and if we continue to run our timer from before, you'll see that it updates in real time with the timer. So now we have an easy way for your players to look at their time without actually having to try and figure out what's going on in that sidebar. It also conveniently frees up the sidebar for other scoreboards that you may want them to see. Now, let's move on to a timer which will allow you to have a more individualized experience, making it easier to create systems where you are having separate times for each player or mechanism in your contraptions. I'll be right back with you once I stop running all this and set this up. You are also going to need some timer commands for the individual timer, so here are those commands. We are foregoing the use of one scoreboard objective with a few different players in favor of 3 different objectives for each frame of time, which will each host each individual player's time. Alright, now that you have finished, hopefully, setting up your scoreboards, it's time that we moved on to writing our actual code. This timer is going to utilize tags to determine whether a player's timer should be updated. Therefore, you need something to trigger the giving of the tag to the player. In our example here, I'm going to use a simple start line and finish line technique, the yellow acting as our starting line and the red as our finish line. So when we step on our supposed starting line, we will be given the tag and our timer will commence. And then when we step on the red, the timer will halt and we will no longer have it running. Let's figure out how to do that. So starting on our furthest command block here, a repeat command block, we are going to detect if the player is standing on our starting line. If you're using a different method to assign the player's tags, then make sure to change this command block out for whatever gives the player their tag. However, following our example for now, we are going to execute as at A, at S, if block where they're standing, -1. So basically the block right below them is whatever your block of choice is for the starting line. In our case, yellow concrete. So we'll just punch that in quickly. And then we are going to run a tag command that will give the selected player a tag. You can call your tag whatever you want, but I'm going to call mine timer_on. Make sure your repeat command blocks are always active, and you can see that once we step on this yellow concrete and check our tags, we now have timer on. Let's begin creating the actual timer system, and then we'll finish with stopping the timer on the finish line. The rest from here is pretty similar to how we did the original stopwatch timer, with minor alterations to make it friendly with our individual design. It's time to get friendly with the idea of executing as at A with the timer on tag, because we're going to be using this little phrase here in most of the command blocks to follow. So in this case, we want to execute as at S with the tag, and we are going to simply run a scoreboard command that will add 1 on the ticks scoreboard to the player in question. I'm not going to set it to always active just yet, because I want to finish creating the system before we get it running. Otherwise things will go haywire and we'll have a couple like 1,000 ticks by the time we're done, and that's just a hassle to reset. But let's advance on to tracking seconds. You want to once again execute as at A with the tag, and then as at S, but this time it is if their score on ticks matches 20. And then what we're going to do is simply run a scoreboard command that will add 1 in seconds to their score. And up here, we're gonna do the same thing as with the countdown timer, and we are going to just execute as at A tag timer on, and then as at S if their score on ticks matches 20. Here's where we're going to reset that back down to 0. There we go. Once again, just with the countdown timer, we can take these commands and, for easiness, I suppose, just swap this over to here. So now we're going to call on the scoreboard of minutes. We're going to make sure it matches 20 for 60 for 60 seconds instead of 20 ticks, which, if you didn't know, 20 ticks in a second, 60 seconds in a minute. We're going to call on seconds here. So 3 alterations on the repeat command block for minutes. And then we come over and copy paste our command in the chain command block, and we want to set seconds back to 0. We want to make sure it's matching 60, and we want to make sure that it is seconds matching 60. So once again, 3 alterations. Now all we need to do is make sure that when we are stepping on the red concrete, our finish line of sorts, it will end up stopping our timer. And then we'll discuss how we can take the action bar timer and adapt it to the individual timer so that everyone can neatly see their own scores. So, to stop the timer and stepping on the red concrete here, we're going to do a very similar command to what we did for finding the yellow concrete. Yep. Except this time we're going to execute as at a with the tag of timer on. The more specific you go, generally the better it is, and the more likely you're going to actually end up targeting he who you want. So then we want if the block one underneath them is Minecraft and your finish line block, in my case, red concrete. And then we are going to run another tag command adding the tag of timer stop to them. Once again, you can just set that tag name to whatever you want, just make sure you know what your timer on and timer stop tags are called. Next, we've got a couple of chain command blocks to fill out here. Now, depending on your actual program, you might want to have more than just 2 chain command blocks, because if this is your finish line, then it's also your end of the timer. It is the end of the timer, so you might want to have something else happen other than just the timer stopping when the timer, well, stops. If you do, then just make sure to fit it in below this top chain command block we'll be filling out in a second. But for now, I'm just going to keep it nice and simple. Here, we are going to execute as at a, now with the tag of timer stop, as at s, and then we are just going to run a tag command to remove their tag of timer on. This will essentially stop their timer from continuing to be counted, and their scores on each of the 3 scoreboards will stay stagnant. And then lastly, we are going to do the same thing, except we are going to remove the timer stop. And there you have it. Like I said, if you want anything else to happen when your timer stops, make sure to put it below this command block. Essentially, have this command be the last in your chain. That way you can use the tag of timer stop in the rest of your chain to specify exactly who the things you want to happen need to happen to. So now, if we just quickly set up some scoreboards to crudely show our different values here to demonstrate before we look at the action bar timer again, we can see that if we set our one command block to always active, we should start gaining ticks, seconds, and minutes, and this timer will be individual for us. So set the display to sidebar, this one is for ticks, and so now we'll see our seconds up in the list, which you can access by pressing tab, and we'll get our ticks over on the side. I'm going to quickly wipe my tags just to make things run cleaner. Switch all of these to always active. never forget. Make sure everything here is a conditional chain command block, and let's step on here to see our time start to fly. As you can see, we're rapidly gaining ticks, and that's transferring up to seconds in the list. But if we step on here, we will run into a problem. 1 second. Alright, my apologies for that. Something went wrong in this first repeating command block, so I will just scroll through here and you can make sure that you got it as right as I did. Execute as @A with tag timer on, @S if block 1 below the player is Minecraft red concrete in my case, but it could be something else if that is your choice. And then run tag @S add timer stop. And as you can see, now when we step on here, it will stop our timer right where it's at. And we happen to time it just perfectly so that, there we go. And you can check and see that we have minutes. We've got 2 minutes, 2 seconds, and 3 ticks. But once we step on our finish line, it's paused. We can go ahead and continue it all we like, pause it, and that is that. Now, let's talk about how you can integrate this into your Actionbar timer. It's very simple. It'll just take some searching through this long block of syntax. So, let me show you scrolling from the start. What you're going to want to do is find the first part here where it says score and then goes into detail. You're going to want to change name to @S. You're going to want to change objective to minutes. And then you're going to want to go to the next section where it says score. This is right by the end. And you're going to change name to, once again, @S, and you're going to change objective to seconds. And we also need to change up a little bit how this is going to activate, because what we need to do is put in our friend the execute command. So we are going to execute as everybody with the tag of timer on. And then we're going to just run the title as per usual. Oh, well, don't forget the as @S as well. That's important to distinguish. Now, you can see that if we start up our timer, we have it accurately following our individual timer, and boom. You've got yourself all set up so you no longer need to have any funky stuff going on like this. This was all just to test, because you've got your Actionbar timer to show you what is up. And by the way, the Actionbar timer, highly customizable. You want to change the color of everything. You want the numbers to not be bold. You want the rest of the text to be bold. You want italics. You can go nuts. But if you're not sure how to, once again, I would be just fine to make a tutorial, a full tutorial on that. So hit me up. Let's pause our timer here and realize that we have now come to the end of the video. So I'd like to thank everybody for coming along. I hope I could help you out with your project, and if you learned something today, you know, no pressure, but I'm super close to 150 subscribers, so let's make that happen. And likes are a great way for me to judge how well received the video is and whether this is a series that's worth pursuing. I think I'm going to continue with it for the time being, but if I get thrown a bunch of shade, then, well, what's the point? Joke's on you, the point is for me, actually. You know, like I said at the beginning, this is mostly for my learning of command blocks. I just want to see if I can help you guys along the way while I'm doing so. and it's a great excuse for easy content to make. So if you're not interested to find out what's wrong with my upload schedule, I will see you next time. And if you are, stick around for a tiny little speech on motivation and other such nonsense. Alright, let's get down to business. To sum it up, I feel like I only want to post videos that I feel proud to post, and because of that, I don't just want to pump stuff out like I'm trying to go pro. You know, over the past few months, I haven't forgotten about this channel or those who have subscribed. I have just had a total lack of motivation and video ideas. Shameless plug, feed me ideas in my Discord server. Link is in the description, as always. I'd like to thank everybody very much for the continued support, especially to those that have subscribed during this period of downtime for me, and I can't say it won't happen again, unfortunately. But for now, the future is looking bright. Well, now that that's off my chest, I'm off to go seek enlightenment on 7-year-old forum posts that are for 1.5 or something. Farewell!